What do you owe your audience? How can you conclude a story in the most meaningful way possible while also satisfying the people who cared about other parts of your story? Lost was a show about characters and about a dysfunctional group of people coming together, but there was also a mystery to be solved. The island was a vessel to lead these characters on a path. Were they well characterized and likable? Yes, but the show did promise a satisfying resolution, and in that endeavor, it failed. Lost was a show about people trying to understand why they appeared on the island, why they survived a crash, and then about what was important about the island. Threads and hints were dropped throughout the story, but you can't have a story with all hook. You have to explain it later because most of the audience expects it. Basically, you can't tease a show as having a mystery if you never intend to solve it. Having resolution for the characters is only half the challenge. Even the shows and movies that do have room for alternate interpretation at least make sure to have one of the possible endings resolved and leave some wiggle room for any others. This season, the final season, was a story with several hanging threads that ended up being irrelevant or underwhelming. The story lost its tension once we knew where everything would go. The final battle of good or evil, the matter of how the island was resolved, even the Elseworld stories about if they had survived, it all amounted to nothing with the reset button set in the end. All this came to a head with the finale. The point the final scene tried to make, I think, was that the island was real, but by the last season they were on the road to purgatory, and the twists in timeline were a transitional point to get to the afterlife. To me, this seems like a cop-out. They had a story and they were trying to take it a certain way, but in doing this, what they tell me is the writers actually did not plan for any of that. So they just made something up to explain it all away. I heard some people defend this by saying it was about the characters or the journey was the destination. Fair enough. They wanted something else out of the show, I guess. But for me, even if I were to accept this interpretation, it makes the rest of it seem pointless. All the mystique and intrigue surrounding the island, as well as what the show was hinting at, none of it mattered if it just showed they all died anyway. Big Lipped Alligator moment? Try Big Lipped Alligator series. To make it even worse, the writers outright lied to the fans. They said they were not in purgatory and they would not end it the way they did. But here we are today, and that is exactly what happened. And this is to say nothing of the other moments that were dropped. Walt's plot thread never went anywhere, neither did Desmond, whose power was never elaborated upon. The numbers did not quite matter. Pretty much the only thing they did explain was how Hurley became the Protector and how he earned his mystic powers. And even then is so subtle you have to look hard for it. The epilogue New Man in Charge does a little bit to rectify this and explain some answers, but still misses the most crucial points like the purpose of the island overall or the ideas behind some of the other mysteries surrounding Dharma. It's neither a substitute nor a rectification of the actual finale, just an extended conclusion, nothing more. Let's contrast this mode of storytelling with another show, Red vs. Blue. It may be a bit unfair as Red vs. Blue is ongoing and also on a different platform and shorter in terms of runtime, but it does follow a similar serialized format and plot escalation to Lost. Its large ensemble cast is memorable and part of the fun, but they still pay attention to the story. Whenever the plot threads and mysteries are introduced, like Project Freelancer or Omega, the writers always return back to them later. In answering these mysteries, they keep the story going by introducing new hooks on the runoff of the old one, making the viewing experience rewarding to both the characters and the audiences. So in this show, each escalation and new twist makes sense and the stakes are raised every time. One twist leads to another, encouraging viewers to stay tuned. Such was not the case with Lost, which squandered its mysteries halfway through and never followed up on the most important parts of the plot. With this last season, Lost went from being the most popular and influential show of its time to a cautionary tale about promises broken and not living up to fan expectations. Certain shows are allowed to be open-ended, but at least some resolution is expected because that's just how stories work. I feel the writers had a different show in mind than the executives, so we had the initial grab and concept of the story diluted as time went on, but Lost ends in disappointment. Be this a lesson to you, watchers. When you have a show and have these ideas of mystery and intrigue, it would be wise if you knew what those mysteries were before promising that to your fans.